morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining. At CIQ, we're focused on powering the next generation of software infrastructure, leveraging the capabilities of cloud, hyperscale, and HPC. From research to the enterprise, our customers rely on us for the ultimate Rocky Linux, Werewolf, and Aptainer support escalation. We provide deep development capabilities and solutions, all delivered in the collaborative spirit of open source. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, I literally got dropped with 16 seconds left. So good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
Rose, you're on mute. Colin, welcome.
Ready to rock and roll.
It's been a long time since you've been on.
It has been a while. I think last time we were doing the CentOS migration push, which is still a big thing for 2024. A lot of customers asking questions, trying to figure out their cloud strategies.
That's awesome. Welcome back. Now we can hear you, Rose.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's cool. I talk to myself anyway. So, regardless, I'm just going to keep going over here. So I think it was actually 2 weeks ago today that you were not here, Zane, on the webinar, because where were the two of you?
That's right.
We were down at Google headquarters, back on my home field turf, talking to a lot of customers about cloud optimization, which is a big story for this year. It's surprising. As much as the push for AI and development and integration into both the enterprise and public sector and security and performance applications and things like that, there's a lot of customers that aren't fully ready. There's a lot of data applications that are not fully set up for availability yet, for interpretation or inference, and they still got to nail the basics. And it was fun to see so many customers in that same dilemma of getting ready, moving forward, and kind of what their next steps are.
And Colin, I feel like you're going to cover a lot of this, but it seems interesting to me that we're still talking about a lot of the same stuff that we were talking about like in 2014, 15, 16, about people moving to the cloud and optimizing cost. And it feels like we're still in the same struggle.
Well, I think it's even more prevalent now than it was then. And I think the appetite and demand is only increased, where now there's budgets and a push to, really look at how people are spending. Whereas before, let's just say over the past couple of years, everyone was ready to kind of invest. They knew the cloud was growing. They knew that it was secure. They knew that there was good reasons and economics behind it. And now it's like we have to combine all of those things and get real business value out of those investments. And then we have to take on, this highly technical, push across this large pinwheel of AI companies that are out there, both in the large providers as well as startups in other areas, to figure out how we're going to get, maximum outcomes from any one of these investments. And it starts with having everything ready, across your core infrastructure. Again, as an infrastructure engineering, person, I look at it as there's a lot of stages of success to this. And if you haven't crossed milestone 1, which is being, ready and then available, then you're not quite there yet.
I think what's mind blowing to me is watching the scale. I mean, it used to be interesting when people would move 2,000 servers, and now they're moving a million and a half servers and having committed spends of 10, 50, $100 million on cloud infrastructure. It's grown so much.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have some anecdotes on some of the pitfalls and the successes of that throughout today, but the basics don't change. There's still qualified foundations, good architectures, and good reasons to kind of follow the path that works for a lot of major enterprises out there. And kind of excited to share some of those learnings and best practices today.
Okay, if you don't mind, maybe we should backtrack just a little bit and introduce you.
Sure.
Okay, good. So, Colin, tell us who you are, what are you doing at CIQ, and what qualifies you to do such amazing work?
Gosh. Well, long story short, I've worked, there's not a cloud that I haven't worked with or for or built things with. I started in networking engineering, both in physical and the digital back before that was really cool. And I've worked at Azure, I've worked at OCI, I've worked at Google Cloud, I've built data centers for Amazon. And at CIQ, I'm here to help build our cloud business and our cloud products to, at scale, help our customers and the massive fleets that Zane's talking about be fully optimized in the cloud so that they can free up that money towards bigger and better projects. It's a pretty simple game. And we've been growing. I've been here, gosh, I guess almost a year now. It's been really fun to be a part of that story with so many huge customers and public sector agencies out there, and seeing them have, you know, real outcomes, both in cost savings, both in security and performance. And yeah, thrilled. I mean, it's been so much fun, and our story transcends all cloud providers and all workloads. So it's very unique for, you know, a company like ours to have that type of opportunity and impact.
I can't believe it's already been a year since we were in Reno and I met you for the first time. The
Yeah.
week before you started, actually, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, it's good to have you back too, Zane. I have missed you. So you were out that week, and then last week you. With you.
And I'll be going away again here for the next couple of weeks after this. So,
Oh, you
know.
are? Okay. Okay. Well, I'll be solo writing. Well, Colin, it's always a pleasure to have you on, and it's always exciting to hear about all the work that you are doing. I mean, cloud is like a total mystery to me, but in my mind, I bring it down to somewhere there is a giant building with a lot of computers in it, and we just call it the cloud.
I mean, I always try to speak in analogies. So like people that know me will hear me say I like turning on blinking lights in cold, dark rooms. I've said that a lot, but you're not that far off. And so the way I look at it is you're renting and leasing computing power from a very large data center or multiple data centers, and the cost economics of doing so versus investing in your own hardware are unparalleled. Between that and then going up the OSI layers, there's other million reasons for, you know, both third-party software, first-party software. There's a million good things that can happen from that. But it's a big monumental change for a lot of companies, especially in regulated environments, secure industries, those types of things. And not everything I'm going to say is going to be relevant to, you know, each unique customer that's out there on their own journey. But I will say that in most cases, some of the best practices we'll walk through today are invaluable for a lot of good reasons, both in cost management, cloud optimization, which has a lot of derivatives to a lot of different people. But we're going to talk through here's what Cloud FinOps actually is, and here's kind of how we can help you accelerate that. So it's going to be a lot of fun today.
Looking forward to it.
That's awesome.
Should I pull up the slides?
Let's do it.
I think so. Yeah, I know we need to talk about a giveaway backpack, but I want to do that at the end. Actually, I want to just kind of like, you know what I mean? Changing the vibe, man.
All right, there's me and Zane. We do stuff here at CIQ and Rose. You know, we're rocking and rolling. You know, I like the photos. So we'll start first with, you know, there's a lot of research beyond this, and at the end of this presentation, there's a million analyst reports. They're all free of charge. You just have to sign up for them and get the download. There's a lot of good industry analysts reports that have come out over the past 6 months, especially through the wave of AI integrations and what that's driven for cloud optimization. But let's just talk through some basics. So from left to right, most customers' cloud costs are way over budget. Secondly, they're past what they had already forecasted, even for the past quarter going into Q1 for 24 right now. Beyond like 20% is a common number to look at. There's a lot of reasons for that, between idle resources, or what we call zombie resources, things that haven't been fully optimized. They're already migrated there and then shelved, or just continue to operate and consume, which essentially customers are paying for. Or on the far end, they haven't even accounted for the licensing and support costs for those environments. So it's not just running, you know, computers in the cloud. You're running software there. You're taking advantage of support contracts, either direct from the provider or from, you know, outfits like ourselves that are there to help. And as your environment grows, your bill grows as well. And so in some cases, it's a race against the clock. In other cases, it's you haven't done a full assessment or taken inventory of this. And so anything unmeasured, unfortunately, in this case, continues to grow. And
Colin, are you still seeing this as surprising to people whenever they get these bills and it's 72% higher than it? Are they surprised, or do they kind of anticipate this now?
You know, I think that it's expected that the more things that you put on the cloud, that you're going to expect costs to increase. I don't think that there's ever been a real advantage to saying it's going to be cheaper or more efficient. I would say it is more cost effective for those that follow a lot of the best practices that we're looking at. What is surprising is some of the customers, and Zane, you've seen this, you know, every day this week, and certainly most of this year. Most of our customers are multi-cloud. And so they're trying to optimize and take inventory and assess their cost across multiple environments, across very large fleets, and they're on premise, as well as the teams that are managing all of these things. And it's not always gelled, that well together across organizations or across business groups or anything like that. And so what I always look at first is, do you have a FinOps strategy around this? Okay, let's take a look at it. What are the what are the measurements and goals of each of these investments that you've made? And I do treat these more as investments. And then what's the outcomes you're getting from them? And then that all leads into, the level of innovation that they're able to do. And innovation can mean a lot of different things. It can mean AI development and integration, but in many cases right now, getting the first runs on, base runners on and runs scored is actually going to be through optimizing your environments where they are today, and then figure out the best path to migrate those to the cloud if they're not there already, or how to take advantage of the economics like I talked about once they get there. And so there's a lot of reasons to go through those things. But yeah, so these four, these are the four I pulled directly from these reports. You can see the source material below. Please read all of those. The IDC, Virtus One, and Flexera reports are kind of industry standards. I think we've got at least 20 of these analyst reports at the end that you can click on and sign up for and get those downloaded. So then where do we kind of get started here? So what I always try and talk with everyone about is, again, best practices, right? So lessons learned. I've seen there's a lot of horror stories I can share that I won't put out into the universe, but I'll say that there's a lot of areas where it's good to be cautious and to have a good founded perspective as you're moving things to the cloud. And one of the areas that I try to kind of leave a relatively big impact when I was at Google was building our migration program. So before, what we saw was customers all over the place, every part of the world, as well as every industry. And they were doing things in a bespoke fashion. So they didn't have a holistic process or methodology to follow from where do I start? What are my migration waves? What tools are available for me and recommendations for me to follow? What does a well-architected framework even look like for the specific workloads that I'm targeting at moving? And then once I'm there, how do I optimize? Is it all serverless and containers? Is it right sizing of my environments? All the things I'm talking about had been put into kind of a singular focus. And so starting in, I guess it's 2024 now, time flies. About 4 years ago, I started putting together the migration program at Google Cloud. Thrilled with the team that's taking it over. It's wonderful to see the investment Google's making here between Stephen Orban and the rest of the team that fundamentally are using all the best practices, all the brain power that they have there, as well as the partner community in putting this in place for a lot of good reasons for their customers. And as you see on the left side, this is a brand new IDC report that just came out about just the customer outcomes of migrating to Google Cloud. These are real world examples based on a very large sample size of some of the outcomes. So we're looking at cost reduction. We're looking at more efficient infrastructure management. Obviously, that ROI number sticks out. That's the best case. So what we're going to go through now is how do you get there, right? So not everyone's going to have that experience, but these are tangible numbers that people can look at and say, okay, I want that to be me. Do I have a process in place to kind of follow that? And the good news is there is. And so I love showing this chart, and I'm not going to walk through the whole flywheel effect, but what I'll say is there is obviously reasons to get your teams in line to have a outstanding business case with all of your leadership, and then disseminate that across the groups and get kind of center mass. And so this flywheel, we actually started with a much more basic version a couple of years ago, and it's evolved into this. And there's a lot of best practices and a lot of great materials and a lot of great team members and partners that can help support this through every step of that evaluation in business planning. And what it's kind of culminated in is kind of these 5 kind of key pillars. And so I put the hint, not just tech, there for a lot of good reasons, mostly because infrastructure itself is essentially a commodity. We've kind of joked about that in our industry for a long time. And even through the rise of AI and consumption of GPUs and everything else, that's not really going to change. You're going to see different chips and silicon come out over time. But the fact is, if you don't have founded business practices from left to right across this chart, where you're taking measurables, you've got a central team that's managing the operation, You've got a good inventory. You know where your stuff is. You know what state it's in. You know what the network and storage and compute structures are. You know what the database and application dependencies are. And then beyond that, as you go through that journey to move to your chosen preferred cloud provider, you've got a business plan. Like, you know what the outcomes are going to be, and you know when you're going to hit delays. And so you're running this more like a product team with a set roadmap with milestones, and there's measurable outcomes from that. And then the last piece I'll say is when I look through a lot of this, what the hardest part for a lot of customers, and Rose, Zane, tell me if you've heard this, most of it's cultural. Right? A couple of years ago, we were trying to dispel the myth or belief that cloud was not nearly as secure, not nearly as performant as doing it yourself and owning your own data center. And I think largely, as we look at, cloud spending has 2 to 3x. It had a bit of a plateau over 2022 to 2023, but now it's back up again. The numbers are insane, right? So I think that myth has been fully dispelled, and now it becomes, okay, how do I get there faster? How do I get there? How do I have the impacts be larger, right?
I certainly don't hear those conversations as much anymore. It seems like with everybody building around how to secure your environment, it was something that people didn't really think about as much, and maybe the tools weren't there not all that long ago, but now it seems like the focus has been put on it from the hypervisor or the hyperscalers that it never even comes up as a concern.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what we saw before was kind of a prove it model, right? So we had to come out from a cloud provider background. We had to come out with a lot of proof of concept models. We had to let customers try before they buy. We had to have a lot of technical founded architectures and solutions that were ready made. Think of things like VMware, SAP, Oracle database, all the third-party applications in those ecosystems, Windows-based workloads, et cetera, where customers had to really touch it and feel it and actually make sure that the race car was running the lap times that we said it would. And then in other industries that it was as secure, if not even more secure. Otherwise, they had no reason to move. So it was like, it either needs to be as performant or better, it needs to be as secure, preferably better. And then the cost, both in the process of migrating and then also in operating, needed to have, real financial benefits over time. And so you're looking at a big difference between, amortization schedules of hardware and data centers and, personnel management and energy costs and those types of things to now simply, what does my cloud contract look like? And my personnel doesn't change that much. And how do I get the most out of it? And so, again, there's a lot of great information beyond just what's on these 5 slides, both with the Google Ramp program, Amazon Map, Azure's AMP program as well for our Microsoft customers as well, even Oracle's, where there's whole teams dedicated to making sure that you have a world-class experience as you go through these. But as a company, to all of our customers listening and partners listening, these 5 principles still really stand out as like kind of the core center of how to get this done right. So let's get into kind of the basics here in terms of some of the pitfalls and things that I've seen that have led to, non-optimized environments that are still operating and incurring, excessive cost or fees for a lot of customers. So I put these ones in red for a lot of good reasons. And again, this is specific to Google, but the best practices here don't change regardless of which cloud provider you're looking at. So when we perform an assessment, and each cloud provider has their own tools, we'll take an inventory both of what you have at the cloud provider as well as what you have on-prem. It's not hard to tell where you may or may not have idle resources that are either slated for deprecation, or if those applications are legacy and they still need to run, that they can be right-sized, and I'll get to right-sizing in a second. But we'll look at CPU utilization, we'll look at memory utilization, and we'll look at the application and database dependencies. And so there are crawlers that each company has to then isolate these specific things and then determine how they can be more performant or deprecated, like I said. And that's a decision that each customer will have to make as they look through those. From an industry analyst, I think this actually came from Gartner. Just that piece alone can usually decrease cloud commitments by 5%. Just that alone. So whether you're talking about 1,000 VM fleet or a 10,000 VM fleet, 5% can be a pretty big number. And that's over time, and that's not just recognized in year one. That could be, a pretty big pitfall. And I've actually seen that as high as 35%. where a customer had moved things over time, and their migration schedule went a little extra long, and they moved it like for like, and didn't realize that, or no one actually walked them through kind of the new compute instances that had come out, realizing that they could take this pretty massive sprawl and actually segregate it down to, smaller, faster boxes. And that alone saved them quite a bit of money, which leads me to right sizing. And the number one question I get on this is, what is the difference between pre and post deployment? Well, it's pretty simple. When we look at, depending on the dependencies, again, for your on-premise workloads and what you already have operating in the cloud, if we're trying to move you now, you're already doing a lot of that work. And so as you deploy it into the cloud, it actually may make a lot more sense to actually do that before you're actually, as you're migrating, or as you're actually moving those workloads. But then a lot of the customers, Zane, that you and I talk to are already there. And they're saying our bills are 30% higher than they should be. What can I do about this? And so we look at it through two lenses, either through license and support and cost management, or we look at it as infrastructure cost management. And so right sizing post deployment, since they're already there, is traditionally a little bit harder, but you actually can still get quite a bit of savings out of that. And so in both cases, it's not necessarily that you're going to end up spending more. You're going to get a more stable and efficient workload out of it, and your environment cost overall over time are going to go down. And so there's a lot of great tools that can make those recommendations. So an example being, if you're at Google and you're on N1s, it might make sense to move to the N2s. If you're using the maximum throughput of the N2s, it might make sense to start looking at some of the new instances that'll be launched here in, well, I guess it's February 29th in about 6 weeks. But there'll be more news to come on that we'll have at Google Next on April 9th. So then we look at, all right, how to maximize your commit. So let's forget infrastructure for a second and say, all right, what can I do right now just by what I'm already using today, and say, okay, if I know I'm going to use this over time and I'm not going to change the environment too much, what can the financial team actually do to get us a better deal? And so that's where committed use discounts or things like spot VMs or reserved instances comes into play, where you can say, hey, I'm running X amount of this thing. Why don't I just reserve those or buy them on demand right now? And that way I actually can get a better deal on those. And so you're locking in for, let's say set amount of VMs or VM instance types over time, and you're going to get a better deal on those. So that's one area. Then the second area that we look at, and this is where those stages of success come in between migrating and readiness to modernizing, to making things both automated or more cost efficient. The smartest customers I think that we work with today have already gone through kind of those first three. They know the dependencies of their workloads, and they know what the performance needs both at the network and compute layer are. And so they're able to transition to spot VMs and actually maximize the cost performance. So with those, they're actually saying, I don't need a performance SLA. I can actually make do with off-the-shelf, no performance SLA, but a better price. Usually spot VMs are about 72-ish% less. And their committed use discounts may not even get close to that. But they're able to take those and then swap out VMs, on the fly. And some of those have had very big cost savings as part of their commits. And I think we've seen that in a lot of key industries, specifically in financial, banking, insurance, healthcare even. There's a lot of very smart customers that have figured out how to use those effectively. So that's a big spiel on cloud optimization and infrastructure and commit management. There's a lot of areas to cloud optimization.
So who at the Google team is the one that a customer would talk to? Say they're, is there a difference between like a current customer versus a prospective customer? Like, is there like, they call CIQ, Colin, dude, hook it up. I don't know what to do. I mean,
so we will definitely help with that. So we're in the business of making sure that your environment is optimized for Google Cloud, for Amazon, for any of your preferred cloud providers out there. And who our superheroes are, and should be in the same breath as a customer, is not just your FSR or FSM on your sales teams, but your customer engineer or solution architects. Those people are worth their weight in gold. And that should be who is on speed dial with any of your cloud teams at any cloud provider, because they will help you both review, assess, and design what needs to happen for any of those workload types. And they're genuinely incentivized as well to do that exact thing. And then second to that, and not second that like it comes second to that first party situation with the cloud provider, your preferred system integrator or MSP or preferred partner, really should have a big voice in this too, especially if they're part of, managing your commit or in an MSP dynamic, they're actually managing your spend directly as well. And so whenever I say those things, I'm not actually talking about actually quote unquote saving money. I actually think of it more as freeing up your cloud commit to go towards the next wave of products, the next wave of migrations, the next wave of modernization, or obviously AI development as well. And so those technical teams at the cloud providers or at your preferred partner are critical to a lot of this. And we're fortunate to be in both of those hemispheres for the customer as well. Great question. No, so I'm putting these 6 up because whenever I ask a customer, what are your priorities when we talk about cloud optimization or migration, and you'll hear different things. You'll hear, oh, I need to manage my costs. That's always number one. It's been number one for 8 years in a row, according to Flexera and other industry reports, right? So, okay, we got costs. That's fine. Then we look at workload performance or fleet performance or whatever it might be. And that's usually a close second. And security is right up there, either number 2 or number 3. And then these other 3, when it comes to availability, is what I mean by reliability. Or innovation. We want to, obviously invest in AI and figure out how we can, what either transactional or analytical workloads we have that are prime candidates for this. Well, again, if you haven't solved for the first 2 or 3, you're not quite there yet. And you can do this all in one fell swoop, but that's in some cases, if you're not focusing on reliability and security, that might not be the best way to do that. And then last is people. So if you have to have a culture that's ready to adapt and be agile enough to develop these types of scenarios and willing to put in the time and also have the expertise. And so you really need to invest in the technical abilities of those teams, or trust in, the technical groups at your cloud provider or within your partner team. And so what I like to say is that there isn't a hierarchy between these 6. In fact, they're all important. They're all equally important in a lot of good respects. And I think that gets missed in a lot of the dialogues that we have with a lot of customers. And so that's why I like talking about fostering a FinOps culture, because it transcends the infrastructure, the applications, the cloud commitments, et cetera. You really need to look at this as a life cycle. And so there needs to be investments across the team. There needs to be processes put in place. There needs to be health checks and checks and balances in a lot of areas. And again, it all starts with having, a very well qualified business case that you're investing this as a group and across the company or across multiple teams to achieve a expected outcome. And a lot of the migrations that we've worked on where I've seen things go sideways, it's usually not a technical issue. It's usually that the business case did not justify the amount of spend that was involved, either in the professional services piece or the cloud investment piece. Or the teams themselves were not simply ready to accept the amount of new work created by this, or that things went so well that they had to create new work thereafter to then work on the next wave of migrations or cloud optimizations. And so again, another flywheel here is once you're through kind of the core tenets that I've walked through on those pillars, there is a life cycle for this. It's never one and done. It's a constant evolution and it's a constant journey. And so when you put these things in motion and you complete kind of the first wave or the second or the third, you're right back where you started. So in Amazon speak, it's always day one. There's always a new problem to solve, a new challenge to meet. And if you're not constantly looking at that evolution across your either cloud investments, your on-premise, your applications, your fleets, et cetera, then you're missing a big opportunity to make things better. And so that's kind of one of the overwhelming messages I always like to walk a number of customers through as we go through this. And there's advantages and disadvantages across every aspect of this. And so there's really good information to help support a lot of these things. Again, I'm going to share a lot of the white papers. They're all at the end of this, and they're all readily available to be downloaded. But this is probably one of the most important slides throughout all of this, is to look at it as, you know, a complete life cycle and evolution for every customer. I mean, Zane, how many times have you seen that, right? Like it comes up every day.
Every day. One of the questions I had for you, Colin.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to cloud, you can kind of architect your way around any problem, right? So when you're looking at reliability, it's always one of the people who started architecting applications to cross availability zones and something that can be more optimized. They can make sure if one goes down, it stays up. You can over optimize to the point where your cost is higher if you try to overdo it versus the actual business outcome or the business goal. So
yeah,
are people paying attention to that, or do we have the swing where it used to be nobody did it, then we started doing way too much of it? Are we finding our way back to the middle where we're actually looking at what does the business really require from this app, and we don't necessarily have to have that multi-zone, multi-cloud per application?
I think there's a lot of examples of that, actually. So we've seen that, you know, in terms of trying to think of an easy one, load balancers, where, you know, over architecting the front end of a lot of applications then leads to spiraling costs, and things that come through as traditional traffic may not always present themselves that way. And actually it ends up being a security vulnerability. But was the environment reliable? Yes, it was. And then they end up looking at the wrong problem, you know, related to their cloud architectures. And there's a balance and a trade-off. Right. And so, you know, if we think through like the past 20 years of our industry, from big chips to small chips, from big data centers to small data centers, now we're back to very, very large data centers and very, very large chips again, you know, that endless cycle that continues to happen. I would always just go back to, you know, is the glass half full, or is it half empty, or is it 2 times too big from an engineering perspective? And so whatever's usually the simplest answer, you know, the best idea wins based on merit there. And as long as it's balanced within, you know, both the org structure, the workload structure, and then the technical facets to support it, that's probably the right way to do it. But yeah, there's a lot of customers I've seen that have way overthought a lot of things, or didn't ask the right questions and simply didn't know that there were better ways of doing things, that there was tools for this, that they didn't need to do a complete assessment on their own and have their team go heads down for a week or multiple weeks, when, you know, a simple tool would have done this in 24 hours or less, right? Like there's even areas of that they get overlooked pretty often.
Learn what you don't know.
Yeah. And so on the structure of tools, you know, kind of my following those kind of 5 pillars and kind of the best practices when we look at, you know, regardless of which cloud you're working with, regardless of how much you have on premise today or how much you've already invested in the cloud, things can always be better. And so, you know, establishing a cloud FinOps group, even a small team, you'll see advantages, and you'll see good outcomes and positive benefits from that. There are multiple tools within both your infrastructure investments as well as within your commit structure that you can use. Again, I walked through a couple of those details today between committed use discounts, spot instances, or reserved instances, et cetera, where you can get, you know, maximum price performance out of the investments you're already making. Within cloud billing, there's a lot of good reasons to set resourcing. And so again, another area I look at, a lot of customers not fully leveraging. They'll see this giant bill, but they won't have asset tagging or resource tagging across what is being provisioned for what purposes. And so they're just saying, oh, it's increased 20 or 30%, you know, month over month or quarter over quarter, and not realizing it's actually just this one development team over here that's consuming or over consuming, you know, against their cloud investment portfolio. And so that's where keeping score really becomes, you know, pretty important. One of the areas that we'll talk about, you know, near the end of this is going to be cloud marketplaces. Most customers haven't fully utilized this, and I'd say that is a hotbed for how to maximize both your cloud investments as well as your existing software investments as well. We're guilty as charged. We actually have all of our solutions on cloud marketplaces today for a lot of good reasons. Number one being it allows you to burn down your existing cloud commitments. 2, we can give you a lot of price advantages and pass the cost savings on. And then 3, it's an almost immediate deployment. So it's a click through. We can do private offers, and we can essentially give you as good, if not better, terms with your preferred cloud provider through the marketplace, because you're incentivized on your cloud commit, and so is the sales team, and so are we. And so it gives everyone, kind of a win-win scenario there that works, with a lot of advantages to it. And again, the last piece is that culture aspect. It's very hard. It's arguably the hardest part. Infrastructure is not the problem anymore. But establishing a cloud FinOps culture will yield a lot of benefits.
So can I ask you to clarify a point that you made?
Sure.
So you said something about one of the biggest problems that you see is people not understanding, or companies not really understanding, not getting the feedback from their cloud environment on where spend is going, who's doing what, how is this happening, what is going on. So like, is there a solution for that? Like what?
Yeah. So there's custom labels, and then there's asset tagging and custom billing reports. So if you're sitting at the top, let's say I'm like a CFO or CTO, whoever is actually managing the full cloud investment portfolio. I'm going to isolate this down to one cloud provider. It gets even more arduous when we add like a second or a third, which a lot of our customers are in. So essentially, you want to go from the ground up. So you want to actually take, from a technical standpoint, you want to take either your project or tenant or resource IDs and actually assign them labels based on which team is using those resources or what application or workload is being identified for that specific purpose. And so what you'll end up with is this very large hierarchy and map all the way down that says, okay, now I can take just this one segment of my business or line of business applications or whatever it might be, and that's isolated to this one group, and then assign an owner. And then same thing all the way through your entire investment portfolio. So that way you have, in basic terms, I've got my development and testing operations over here, and I've got my production environments over here. And then I can look at, okay, this is what this one group is using month over month. And let's take a basic area. If someone massively uses month over month, it's not a blame game. It's actually what happened there. Does that mean that, like, let's say our end of year batch reporting for our financials spiked because of, Thanksgiving or the holiday break? Was that expected? Was it expected to go that percentage up? Or did we simply, absolutely crush it as a company? And these are good problems to have. And let's see how we can optimize the environments to better load balance all of that new traffic and all of those new that new compute that we need to use for that. And so again, if you're not keeping score and you're not using asset tagging and then custom billing reports to set those up for each of those teams, it'd be very hard to hold any of those teams accountable, or to be able to even look at, across your entire real estate and investments, where those issues occur.
So how is it that a company ends up in a situation where they're not doing that?
You'd be surprised. Yeah, I mean, I forget the exact term, but I think there was a report not too long ago that like the average life expectancy of most enterprise or Fortune 1000 CIOs is under 3 years. So you're inheriting a portfolio and trying to take an investment analysis of someone else's work prior to you joining, or you're mid-flight, or you're actually in the middle of doing this type of migration. And nothing I'm talking about is trivial. There's very few scripts that can automate a lot of this. In some areas, it is a manual process, but it's a worthwhile undertaking for a lot of good reasons that I mentioned before, where you can get those types of reports, and then you can have monthly syncs with your teams and say, hey, here's where we're at. So-and-so is on this. We're investing here. We expect our cloud spend to go up X% because, we're piloting this new workload over here, or we expect this much more traffic on, our core business applications over here, whatever it might be. And so for a lot of good reasons, which again goes back to nailing the basics, keeping score turns out to be one of the fastest paths to success for a lot of customers of any size right now. And it's not just infrastructure too. So one of the pieces that we're going to talk about in a second is licensing, right? That was one of the first main points, that it's not just your cloud bill at the end of the day. There's a lot of reasons to have a full inventory of your licensing and contract structures. Like, are they coterminous? What are the terms on those? How much are you using? There's a lot of things to look at there.
Awesome.
So let's dive right in. All right. So who is our biggest customer? Who's our biggest partner? Well, I've got this little thing shining up behind me, right? I came from Google Cloud, and I'm so thrilled to continue to talk about this amazing partnership. We've been working with Google for a long time, back when I had my Google badge and everything else. And we custom make Rocky Linux for Google Cloud across all industries and workload types. And it's been really exciting to work with the team, both in the product and engineering group, as well as the sales teams, because there are so many customers that are using a lot of the best practices I've walked through earlier and putting them into motion, and then finding that having an optimized, specific image to their workload on Google Cloud has a lot of advantages. And we'll share some of those today. We've effectively provided kind of three options here, and these are pretty simple. You've got, base Rocky Linux, driven by the community, that's freely available and ready to go. So it's great for testing for compatibility's sake, and using kind of the latest minor and major releases that are out there. Where we fit in, and where where Google brings CIQ in as a partner, is then optimizing those instances for specific VM shapes and types. And so what that gets you is all the inherent benefits of using Rocky already, but then that you're getting a streamlined image specific to that. And so we're actually launching that across multiple cloud providers. Obviously, we've got Amazon on the logo, or AWS logo on here as well. That'll continue to transcend to essentially all major hyperscalers, because we're finding that there's a massive amount of demand and appetite for this. And when it comes to fine-tuning things specific to your security or performance requirements, that's where our Engineered for Enterprise, our enterprise Linux platform, comes in. That's available on all cloud marketplaces right now. So you get 24/7 support. You get bespoke images unique to your environment structure. So again, all the things I talked about earlier, from technical issues, right sizing, reserved instance environments, etc., we'll fine tune for those and actually make them unique to your requirements and specifications. So what are those outcomes from that, though? Like, how do we actually make this better for everybody? Well, you still get the highest level of security and compliance out there. I don't know how many know this, but CIQ is effectively kind of the certification entity for a lot of the federal and industry regulations and security requirements that are out there. Think of like FIPS and other federal SRGs and things like that. We've got on staff some of the best Rocky Linux engineers on the planet. Shout out to that whole team. Thank you guys for all the amazing work that you do every day. And we put it all through the hyperscalers at a cost that is effectively affordable, but also maximum performance and maximum security. So there's a lot of good reasons to look at it, especially once you've gone through that inventory and you may or may not understand exactly how much just your operating system is costing you right now. And right now in our industry, Zan, I've heard some news recently that there's going to be some price changes imminently this quarter, or within the next, let's say 30 or 60 days, as well as CentOS, going end of life in June. But customers, I think, are going to get sticker shocked with some of the excessive amount of pricing changes that are going to happen for things that are already operating on premise or in the cloud. Right?
They are shocked. I started getting some phone calls yesterday as some people that had started to get some surprising increases. Very unexpected.
I didn't actually put that together in my brain until you just said it. I was like, oh, yeah. But then when you just said, and the end of life for CentOS 7 is also coming up here pretty quick.
So if you're on CentOS 7, Rocky has been designed, again, we can do a whole nother webinar just on that story, right? Mm-hmm. But Rocky Linux should be at the top of your list for a lot of good reasons, right? Beyond just the obvious of the successor to CentOS, the foundation, and everything else. The fact is, if you're accustomed to customizing your own environment, using this both on-premise or for your HPC nodes or whatever it might be, there's a lot of good reasons to take a look at Rocky. And if you're going to run those in the cloud, that's where we fit in, that we've already done that work for you, and you have those optimized images. Again, those are free of charge. Those are sitting on the cloud providers today, and they're already custom built day one for all the new instance types that are coming out there. And we're thrilled to partner with Google and the other cloud providers. There's going to be a lot of news coming out over the next couple of months. But back to brass tacks. What does that mean from a financial perspective? These numbers might be low. In fact, we've actually seen even higher cost savings than this. So where does that come from? So we deploy and build regularly with each of the cloud teams and optimize for those instance types. So on the very front end, you're going to get a more performant image. On the back side of that, it's also, if you look at just the licensing and support for your operating system or the infrastructure tools you use to manage your fleets, which we also provide, you're going to save a lot of money. And that money can then be freed up towards the other departmental level investments that you're trying to create, specifically AI or anything else along those lines. And so I think a lot of people miss that, where they look at it just the cost of doing business or the cost of operations. And reality is, like, this is not insignificant. There's customers that we've worked with across cloud providers that are able to save north of 10% on their commits just by switching to Rocky, just by using the images that we're creating every day and the stuff that we have on Marketplace. And again, when you need more fine tuning, when you need better performance, that can be both workload performance or that could be boot time optimization. For those with giant fleets, there's customers where us saving them 1 second or 2 or 3 seconds on boot time alone per VM when they have 10,000 plus VMs deployed, or they're using billions of cores every year. That 1 second makes a giant difference. In fact, it's usually measured out to, at least 5,000 per VM per year, or even north of 10,000, depending on, how performant, how many, what their specific architecture looks like. And so just in those scenarios alone, there's a lot of cost savings that we can provide just for the environments you're running today. So Zane, why don't you walk us through? So I got real excited this week because I learned a little bit more about what we can do with Ascender specifically as an inventory tool, CentOS migration, and then how to optimize with for cloud fleets.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we've, coming from a consulting life in the background, you always have to assess kind of what you have, and it's always really, really challenging. There's a lot of tools out there that can kind of tell you, here's what you have, and we can possibly move this workload. I mean, they give you the 5 different levels of easy to up to hard, and they kind of show you the way to get to it. When it comes to actually execution, that's when things get challenging, and it's really difficult to see, did I build this thing that's equivalent or in a state that is comparable to what the other one was? So what we've done with Ascender and another product called Ledger is being able to actually go in and scrape your inventory of what you currently have and then give you a baseline for what that looks like if you migrate that over to Rocky. So we can show you package by package, service by service, user by user, disk space by disk space, exactly what it has versus what it needs to do on another machine. And then we can actually create those playbooks to go build that machine exactly like your old one. So moving from CentOS 7 to Rocky 8 and 9, making sure that the packages are there that you had on the old machine, and then migrating data. We can do it all, and we can make that an automated thing that kind of just becomes a click button.
So for those listening, right? So this is not meant to be an intrusive inspection into your inventory and workloads at all. What it actually is saying is, okay, some of the customers, there's a split, right? There's your Windows-based workloads over here, your Linux-based workloads over here, and then specifically trying to target, let's say, CentOS 7 or even 6, whatever it might be, right? And even when you've done high-end module or package customizations specifically, what this tool will do is actually give us those entire readouts and then actually say, okay, here is both the operating system configuration and here is the compute configuration. Here's the CPU utilization over time, the memory utilization over time, and here's how it can be ported over and upgraded to Rocky Linux. It's one of the fastest, easiest ways that, and one of the most valuable tools, I think, in our arsenal. And it's a good complement to the migration programs I talked about before. So each cloud provider, and guilty as charged with StrataZone at Google Cloud, where I flew to Chicago and met with my friend Carl and the team over there. Shout out to those guys, they're amazing. That tool and all the other tools out there will help you get a complete inventory and assessment of all of your assets between applications and databases. Where this tool comes in is taking that to the next level and then saying, all right, what is the specific compute shapes and sizes that we should be using for this? And then specific to the licensing, support, and operating system configurations, which are going to be end of life. Or in the case of RHEL, we can do the same thing there, and actually how to convert those over to Rocky. And all you have to do today is go to our website, sign up for an assessment, and you'll hear from Zane or myself or someone from our team, and we'll get you started. And we can do this very, very quickly. So I know there's 5 steps here, but really we get from 1 to 3, in a hurry. It's not that difficult. So great tool. Any other pieces that we're missing on that one, Zane? Because this got me really, really fired up this week.
No, I think that's a great place to start. It's one of those. It's interesting to see because you actually get a visualization. I mean, you can look side by side and get the green light that these things are in sync and ready to go, or the red light. Here's what's missing. Here's the things you got to think about. So, I wish I had this a long time ago doing cloud migrations. It would have made my life a lot easier.
1,000%. 1,000%. I mean, there's so many stories I can think of between, missing database dependencies, network latency, cross-region traffic. This is one of those ones I wish we had in the quiver for a very long time. But here it is. It's ready to go. So I mentioned that I was going to give everyone a lot of access to analyst reports and white papers. Here they are. So there's a whole plethora of these from leading names and amazing teams out there that have done great work. So don't take all the numbers that we've put up here lightly. Those are all coming from foundational research, from massive surveys, from CIOs and CTOs across the planet to get a lot of those insights. And so these are some of the best ones that I've seen out there. Secondly is the how-tos. All right, we walked through a bunch of areas. We walked through the 5 pillars of migration. We walked through cloud FinOps. Where do I get started? How do I get more informed? How do I start getting my team set up for this? Here's where those tools reside. And these are all specific to Google Cloud because you just love working with Google. They've done a great job and they've got great information. So shout out to their teams and the product marketing group and the product teams that put a lot of this stuff together. So here, back to Rose's question, I do have a couple pieces on tagging here. On resource allocations and custom billing reports to get you started there. We also have some of the tools for right sizing and right sizing recommendations on there as well as a few customers that have kind of taken that journey as well. So feel free to use all of those, and we'll make sure this has public access. And lastly, just thanks everyone for the time. This is a kind of a consolidated version of a lot of these best practices. More than happy to walk through, anyone through each of these steps with any cloud provider. But, these are founded based on, a lot of examples that we've seen and a lot of customers that we're working with right now and a lot of partners that are ready to help, alongside us to help get you there. So get started today. Start with the cultural piece first. Take an assessment also of the tools at your disposal between cloud providers or from your partners, and let us know what we can do to help. I have yet to see an environment that we can't help optimize, and I have yet to see a customer or a workload that we can't help customers save money with by making it either more secure or more performant or both. And really, that's the whole story. Cloud optimization is hard. It's a long-going journey. It's an evolution. It's something you got to do all the time. And we're happy to be, a big part of that for a lot of good reasons for a lot of good customers.
Thank you, Colin. And before Rose starts talking about a backpack, we are going to be at Next. So please, by all means, schedule time, reach out to us. Let us know you're going to be there. Stop by the booth. We're going to be there at a booth. We'll have access to conference rooms so we can go have private conversations about whatever you guys want to talk to. So
yeah, we will be everywhere at Google Next. There's going to be a lot of product releases, a lot of major announcements coming out. You kind of already seeing the marketing machine get turned up. Our booth, I think, it's either number 230 or 203. I forget. Anyway.
Ooh, that's a good question.
One of the two. Anyway, we will be there. Come find us. We're there to represent all things Rocky and CIQ, and we'll be talking a lot about CentOS migration with a lot of customers.
Yes.
So excited to see everyone in a couple of weeks.
And that's awesome.
Booth 231. There we go.
231.
Yes. There we go.
I was like, I can't actually see. I'm going to show you guys this. All right. I want to present right now. So here, share screen. I'm doing it, guys.
She's going to ask her to restart her browser. It's going to happen.
The easiest with 2 monitors. How do I know which one I want to? Oh my gosh. See, they're making this so bad. Entire screen. This one. Okay. I'm doing it, guys. Doing it.
There you go.
Woohoo. Okay, awesome. So this is where we're going to be. So 231 is right there. So you just walk in, do. See, I drew like a little path. Boom.
There you go.
CIQ booth. We are right there. Okay, wonderful. We are very excited. And if you guys want to actually schedule a meeting with anyone on our team that's going to be there, there's going to be several of us. Feel free to reach out to us at ciq.com. You go anywhere and fill anything out and it's going to come to me. So, just let me know who you are and who you want to meet with, and we'll set that up for you. Of course, very excited about that. And Colin, thank you so much for coming out and sharing all this awesomeness with us, optimizing on the clouds. It's very exciting time for us internally as well, as we kind of have spent a little bit more time in the HPC area. So it's like really nice to kind of branch out and do some different things. All right, you guys. So here on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, hello, and thank you so much. Thanks for watching. We are, I think, at like 921 subscribers. So we're getting there. We're chugging right along. We're almost to 1,000 subscribers. And once we get there, we are giving away a limited edition Carhartt Rocky Linux backpack that you can see right here. It is in all of its glory and beauty. It is very exciting. Okay, so of course we're like, well, when that happens, we'll be live. We get that 1,000. We're going to do a shout out to whoever it is. We're going to email you. We're going to tag you. We're going to send it to you. It's going to be amazing.
And no, Rose, we are not eligible to win.
I know.
Well, we're also gonna have some pretty killer swag at our booth at Next too, by the way. So
it's true.
I have
just throwing that one out there.
Yes, so definitely come by. Plus, we're gonna be in Vegas, so like that's just fun. It's gonna be awesome. Alrighty, well, Colin, thank you, man. It's always an absolute pleasure to hang out with you and hear all the good work that you are doing. And I'm so glad that you got, okay, you guys, I just have to like totally call him out right now. When he came on, I think actually you weren't quite there yet, Zane, but he came on and he was talking, he was like, I just got back from vacation. I feel so refreshed and free. And all of you guys look stressed out. I don't even
know. Did he say stressed out? I think it was something else, but I think he was talking to me and just said,
No, I still have that aloha glow a little bit.
Totally
good for you, man.
It's wearing off, but
good for
you.
You
You know what? Work hard, play hard, but also rest hard, right? Like that is an important piece of all of it. So I'm glad that you got to rest, Colin. And
thank you. Yeah, I'm paying for it now. I'm a solo dad this week with my 2 kids, so I'm playing all the jobs this week.
Good time, man. Good time.
Awesome. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time. Same time, same place.
See you, everyone.
Bye.